at at Source. And I think I've only presented at one other conference, which was the National Conference of Undergraduate Research. And it's all been on memes. And once it was on European animation.
Oh, that sounds awesome. I'm so excited about your talk, but I am curious, what is European animation?
So my interest in animation, I just really like the art style. I was a TA for Jennifer Green, who I believe is like the faculty advisor for Pulse and Observer here on campus. She taught a class called European Film, European and Cinematography or something like that. I TA'd for that class, and she didn't have anything about animation within the course, teachings, lectures, and I was like, hey, I like animation. I will research and do a lecture for you. And then I made that 2-hour talk down to a 15-minute one for Source.
Wow, that's really cool. And I love how you're just like growing a class with your own interests. That's really cool to hear about. Erin, do you want to introduce us to sort of your background?
Sure. I'm Erin Cone, and I'm the program coordinator for the Office of Undergraduate Research. This is my 4th year in the office. I started in 2018. I went to Central. I was a music major, specifically in percussion performance. That was 2009 to 2013 for my undergrad, and then 2013 to 2015 for my master's in the same degree. And then after that, I worked with Wenatchee Symphony for a couple years, and through the job search and interviews and coming back to Ellensburg, I ended up here in this office, and it's been really great. Worked with Brandy completely virtually last year, so it's really nice being back in our offices, getting stuff done. So we're having a lot of fun, and yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, I have to know, did you play the drums then? Or like when you say percussion?
Drums, mallets, any type of percussion you can think of. I still do, not as much obviously, but so yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Well, thank you so much. And we have another attendee here. Autumn, I believe. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, hi. Good morning. Sorry, I'm not going to share my video, but I'm a massage therapist going back to school, and I'm in the risk insurance and safety management program, and I'm a fully online student. So I'm really happy that this is a virtual symposium conference because I'm actually able to make it. I'm minoring also in accessibility studies, and I'm really curious to see how people's presentations are, and especially with a capstone in accessibility later in my senior year. I'm hopefully going to try to incorporate the crossroads between disability and pregnancy and how that relates to identity, and I guess the idea of choosing a disability versus having it chosen for you or predisposed.
Wow, that sounds like a really great and important project. I do know that there was several students that worked last year on sort of the impact of COVID on pregnancy. They worked with public health, and it was actually one of the projects that we funded here through the office. So we have a great public health group here on campus as well. So that would be another resource, Dr. Amy Claridge, for the work that you're interested in. So thank you so much for joining us today. We had several great presentations from the accessibility studies group yesterday, and I think that we learned a lot. And Skyler, you're coming back again?
I'm sorry,
And
what?
So Skyler, you're on here already, but then we just got a Skyler Smith guest in our waiting room.
Oh,
So,
that might be, I invited a couple people to watch.
oh, okay. So they're using your same.
Yeah,
Okay.
I wasn't sure where the general link was. My bad.
Yep. Nope. That's okay.
we ran into experience this summer where we actually got Zoom bombed, and our guest speakers were particularly attacked. So it was something that we didn't share as widely because it was really hard on the guest speakers. I was really, yeah, there was nothing we could do other than just sit there and kick people out. And I didn't want you to have to do that while also presenting. So
Valid. Yeah, I only
Yeah.
invited my mentor and then my partner. So
yeah, no, I mean, it totally makes sense. Yeah.
We're just checking to make sure.
yeah.
So yeah.
And that's why we hadn't done a bigger set of links. So thank you for your understanding of that. Well, I do want to make sure that Sky's able to start on time, but I wanted to do a couple of things. So once again, welcome to Fall Source. This is our second day, and I really want to hear what Autumn just said about this being more accessible. I think it's something that we're excited to see next year, and I think keeping one day virtuals is something I hope that we'll be able to continue to do. We have a fairly full schedule for today. So Sky's going to be our first presenter. From there, we're going to have about an hour-long discussion. And really, I want this to be a conversation about how to get involved in sort of research and creative projects here on campus. So Autumn, this is something we can talk about, the resources to support the work that you're interested for your capstone. Then we'll have a break and have another student speaker talk about their experience. From 12:30 to 1:10, the library is going to talk about resources to support student research. And then we're going to end with talking about the funding available here on campus through our office and the provost's office to support your scholarship interests. So a full day, but we also wanted to note that not everyone was able to attend today. So we are going to be recording and sharing this. If you have any concerns about that, please let us know, or you also are welcome to keep your video off. In fact, what I've heard from other student speakers is they sort of appreciate that. It's less distracting if people aren't moving around while you're presenting. And but please know it's being recorded, and let us know if you have any concerns about that. I also want to note that Central has worked with our regional leaders to add a land acknowledgement to our larger events. And so I want to start today with saying that Central Washington University, as a Central Washington University leader, it's important to take a moment and to acknowledge that the land on which Central University resides is the historic home of the Yakima people. It is federally recognized Confederate tribes and bands of the Yakima Nation is made up of the Klickitat, Palouse, Walla Walla, Wanapum, Wenatchee, Wishram, and Yakima people. The Yakima people remain committed stewards of this land, cherishing it and protecting it as instructed by elders through generations. We are honored and grateful to be here today on their traditional lands. We give thanks to the legacy of the original people, their lives, and their descendants. Such a land acknowledgement may not be appropriate at all universities, but is something that our leaders have worked out with the Yakima people. So we do want to take and recognize that as we start off today's session. So thank you for providing that initial introduction. I'm just going to take a minute and I'm going to stop sharing my screen and give Sky a chance to sort of get ready. Sky is going to take, and as she mentioned before, as Sky mentioned before, what do you meme? An analysis of CWU college students' use of memes. And this is work done with Dr. Rodrigo Renteria-Valencia.
Renteria-Valencia.
Okay. And so I'm really excited that we have this first session. Sky, are you able to take and share your screen? Do you want to try that?
Yes. All right, I'm gonna do advanced. All right, can everybody see that? You should just be seeing PowerPoint slide right now. All right, Excellent. Would you like me to start now or wait until 10:15 proper?
I've lost every
It
single
just switched
clue.
over to 10:15 on my computer, so you're
Okay.
probably good to go.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go ahead and start then. So just to reintroduce myself, my name is Skyler Smith. I am an anthropology senior here at CWU. I'll graduate this quarter with an anthropology major and ITAM minor, as well as a minor in honors. My mentor for this project was Dr. Rodrigo Renteria-Valencia, who is an assistant professor in the Department of Anthropology. My title is What Do You Meme? An analysis of how college students use memes. And this was completed as part of the requirements for the Douglas Honors College Upper Division program. So some background on my topic. The modern introduction of the word meme came from Richard Dawkins in his book, The Selfish Gene, which was published in 1976. In this book, he introduced the theory of memetics, where meme described a cultural unit. Memes under memetics can be nearly anything and jump from individual to individual as memes try to reproduce themselves in order to survive, much like genes. And this way, memetics is a very biologically based theory, which is rather controversial in the social sciences. Memetics has been used to describe virality as well as internet memes, but it is not a theoretical basis for this study due to its controversial nature. But why study memes? Why are they important? Well, the importance of memes lies in their ubiquitousness on the internet. Internet memes have been used in activism, politics, and they are also used in online communities to define boundaries and gatekeep who can be a part of said communities. They are also used as expressive units of culture within those communities. Now, my main research for questions for this project were how do CWU college students use memes? I think it's important to note that many studies on memes focus on larger processes and logics in larger groups and how memes function in them. I am bringing the question of use to the individual here. And because the literature's definition of memes is currently in flux, my secondary question for this project was how do CWU college students' definition of memes compare with the definition in current literature? For my methodology, my main data collection methods were a digital Qualtrics survey with 13 questions and long-form 1-hour semi-structured interviews and pile sorting using Zoom. To recruit my participants who all had to be 18 or older and a current CWU undergraduate, I sent out the survey to CWU classes and departments and on my own personal social media pages, places where I knew my target population would be present. At the end of the survey, participants were asked if they wanted to participate in further research activities, and if so, to leave their CWU contact information and name. I then contacted them and set up their long-form interviews. In total, I was able to collect 14 eligible responses on my survey and conducted 18 interviews with 6 different participants. To analyze my data, I used quantitative, for my quantitative survey responses, I analyzed and visualized using Excel, while the text and long answers were analyzed, as well as my long form interviews were analyzed, transcribed, using grounded theory with open themes. Memes in current literature. So as I said before, the definition of an internet meme is currently in flux within internet studies literature. I chose Lemur Schiffman and Ryan Milner's definition to combine serve as the comparative base for my participants' definition of memes. Schiffman's definition was chosen due to her prolific writings in the field over almost the past decade. Her definition is, quote, a group of digital items sharing common characteristics of content, form, and/or stance, which B, were created with awareness of each other, and C, were circulated, imitated, or transformed via the internet by many users, end quote. Schiffman also states that memes are idea complexes. Ryan Milner's definition is, quote, internet memes take the form of pictures captioned on Reddit, puns hashtagged on Twitter, and videos mashed up on YouTube. They can be widely shared catchphrases, auto-tuned songs, manipulated stock photos, or recordings of physical performances. They're used to make jokes, argue points, and connect friends, end quote. Milner also asserts that memes are single threads in a memetic tapestry, much like idea complexes. That tapestry is a larger public conversation and social process that individuals and media tie to themselves. It is also important to note that When talking about the spread of memes, Milner states that memes can be shared between two people as an inside joke. It does not necessarily have to be shared by many users. His definition was chosen because of his comprehensive understanding of social processes on a large scale as relating to memes. Now, what were the definitions of my participants? Well, their definitions were expansive and changeable, with many participants in the initial survey and interviews saying that memes were just like jokes that had been spread around the internet a lot. However, those definitions soon expanded to allow memes that were not funny, such as anti-jokes, which is basically just like a joke without the punchline, and memes about serious topics, such as politics and mental health. They also included memes that they created themselves using their own photos and shared only to friends and family. Participants also brought out memes into the real world and included references to memes as part of a meme. Additional features of memes included that their elements be used outside of their original context and that they were used to relate to others, ask questions, and highlight their own stances on topics. In summary, our participants' definition of memes were that memes can be visually interpreted with the exception of some verbal references. Memes can be brought into real life or be records of real life actions, but must be on the internet at some point. Almost any digital item can be a meme. Memes provoke emotion and thought, which guide how people react to them and how they use them. To compare that to the literature, features of my participants' definitions that was not present in Milner and Schiffman's definitions is that memes can be in real life and that references to memes are also part of the meme. My participants also required that memes provoke emotion or thought that became a guiding principle for reaction or use. Milner and Schiffman did not describe or have the condition of users' reactions as part of their definitions. Something not present in my participants' definition, but in Milner and Schiffman's, is that they did not require that memes have similar characteristics, such as visual characteristics, although this may have been assumed by participants. Features present in all of these definitions is that almost any digital item could be a meme. Memes are a part of idea complexes and mimetic tapestries. I mean this specifically when participants created and shared memes only between their friends and family. Those memes referenced and talked about larger meme conversations and visual patterns among memes. All definitions said that memes are used socially for jokes, questions, and relating to others. Although Schiffman required that memes be spread widely, in both Milner and my participants' definition, memes did not have to be spread widely. And in all of these definitions, explicitly stated in my participants, but implied in Milner and Schiffman's, memes must be on the internet at some point. Now, before I talk about use, I do want to differentiate between use and interaction. So interaction must happen before use and is largely an internal experience. Interaction behaviors include viewing, saving memes to a personal device, searching information about memes, and reacting to memes. This can also happen in real life when a person views a printed out meme or a meme used by a professor at a lecture and hears or reacts to a meme reference in conversation, whether in the digital sphere or real life. And use, I defined as intentional spreading. So use behaviors would include when a person references a meme, shares or creates and alters a meme. Buying a meme themed item would also be considered a part of this category. In principle, they're spreading the meme in some way. I don't think that these are the best categories. I do think I need to do more studying and more research to really solidify these. There are some behaviors that I found in my study, such as information filtering and talking about memes, which don't really go in either category. But aside from that, because the main purpose of this study is to answer the question of use and not interaction, you'll be focusing that in the rest of the presentation. And the most important / prevalent use behaviors were sharing, creating, and altering memes. So meme creation. On the left-hand side of the slide, you can see the results for my survey in the question, do you create memes? 2 of the 14 respondents said that yes, they create memes. 1 did not respond, and 11 said that they did not create memes. However, as I interviewed my participants, 4 of my interviewees said that they had made a meme before or did make memes, whereas 2 maintained that they did not create memes. People who said that they didn't make memes assumed, that people who made memes were up to date with recent memes and events, naturally funny, and knew the full context of the topic in the memes that they made. Those who stated that they didn't make memes, they said that it was because participants often denoted themselves as not very tech literate. They had feelings of being self-conscious or anxiety over how their memes would be perceived or if they would be repetitive. They often stated that they were not funny or creative enough to make memes. And another reason given for not making memes is that they did not make traditional memes. This was interpreted to mean the image plus caption, maybe with static background on white text, very characteristic of the memes you would see in the late 2000s. They also said that they didn't create memes because they didn't share their memes to public spaces. Now, if you were to examine the process of creating memes, those who did report creating memes typically used and edited photos from their daily lives of friends and family members and pets rather than using existing materials. So those would be memeable events and actions. Usually the action of making a meme was very spontaneous. You take a pic of a perfect moment or you pose in an environment. These photos then went through a processing phase where photos were zoomed in, cropped, captioned to take advantage of embarrassing, silly, or ridiculous moments and expressions, and then shared among friends and family rather than larger public groups. Many of these memes, according to participants, were used as reaction memes. Sometimes there was no process phase, and the photos were just sent to their receivers, and those receivers would reply back to the photo and add a caption to the meme that way. And then meme sharing participants. Well, first let me define. Sharing is spreading a meme without altering it, and sharing is mostly done in the digital space because most in real life sharing includes some sort of altering or reference type behavior. Participants' sharing habits mostly revolved around close friends and family. Very few participants mentioned that they had shared to any other place, especially a public one. They sent memes to build relationships, use as a greeting, and to relate to others or to get the attention of the other person. They would send videos, funny memes, and memes to make the receiver laugh. Memes about mutual interests or topics or ones that the sharer knew that the receiver would enjoy. Participants in general showed a consistent pattern of avoiding sharing political, dark, or non-funny and insulting memes. Exceptions to this included if they were sharing in order to ask a question, start a conversation, and reiterate a stance on a topic. However, the reiterating a stance behavior was more in public-based sharing, so like on their personal social medias. Hesitation towards sharing such memes could come from participants' general assumption that whatever a person shared reflected their stance directly. Even if there was a caption saying the opposite of the meme, if it was insulting or dark, many people would not read it. This could create uncomfortable misunderstandings and require the sharer to elaborate. And then this is the result of my survey question: how often do you share memes? Most participants did not share memes that often. At least once weekly was the biggest response, with 6 participants selecting it, whereas 4 selected every time they went online they shared memes, and 2 selected at least once daily. Beyond that, we'll move on to the discussion. Overall, students at CWU brought memes to a much more interpersonal level, where meme sharing and meme creation remained mainly between friends and family, while their meme definition was tied to larger conversations about memes, their digital nature, and the reaction that participants had to them. So I would, as an ending note, like to acknowledge my bias in this study. I am a part of this demographic. This could have affected how I assumed what different words meant, the different questions I asked, how I reacted to my participants. I think that this in no way removes the importance of my work or the validity of my research, but it is important to keep that in mind as my research is examined. And if I were to do this study again or continue the study, I would like to include more participant observation and an observation in general. I was very picky in that I wanted to know exactly who I was working with. And unless I could know for sure who was behind the screen, I didn't want to deal with that. So I would like to include more recreation. So have my participants recreate their meme behaviors and scrolling behaviors, and then observe that. Other than that, I will show my sources real quickly. And I will take any questions you have. If you have further questions after this, you are free to email me at smithsky@cwu.edu. And I will go ahead and stop sharing.
Can we, there's two ways that we can take and thank our speaker. There is a reaction down towards the bottom, and you can take and use that, or you can go ahead and unmute yourself, and let's make sure that we thank our speaker.
Good job.
Thank you.
So, Sky, I'm going to go ahead and ask a question right away. How did you start on this project? Like, how did you get involved in doing research, undergraduate research?
So I'm a part of the Douglas Honors College, and I completed their general education and minor requirements. They also have an upper division program where you have to complete an original research project, culminating usually in a thesis, or if you are in a creative major, in a creative project. So if you're in film, you could create a film. Since I was in anthropology, the focus was interdisciplinary, and I could do literally anything about culture. I spent a lot of time online. Memes are definitely a huge part of my life. So I was like, why not examine this? I'm not seeing a lot of this in the research. I have an opportunity to really contribute. So that's kind of how I got involved with this particular topic and research in general.
So what I'm hearing is you took something that you were really interested in and just decided to explore it further.
And yeet it off.
Perfect. Any further questions for our speaker?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. I actually have more of a comment. I think this is a really cool topic, and I think as times are changing, this is going to be more and more important to discuss, because it's not just jokes anymore. Like you're saying, it's political, and even from your research, you know, I think the most interesting part was that no one selected never when sharing memes. That category was completely barren. And I think that speaks highly to how pervasive memes are in our culture. So this is really valuable research, and I'm super happy that you're doing this. This is awesome. And, you know, someday I think you'll be the expert people are referring to when they talk about memes.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that comment.
Yeah, I guess I don't really have a question either, but it's just so cool to think about, because like when you talk about sharing them on social media, I'm like, oh, I don't think I do it that much, but I'll share them to like my Instagram story, and then I'll like forget about them because they'll go away or something like that. But I also like send them in text conversations all the time to like relate to what we're talking about or something like that. And I have a friend on Facebook, and his like sole purpose on Facebook is just sharing memes he finds. So like there's people at that level, and so it's just really cool to hear about. So great job.
Yeah. And I would, this is like a self-reporting study. Like I said, I didn't have a lot of observation in it,
Right.
because I wanted to guarantee who I was working with, which is
Yeah.
a problem in all digital ethnography. But I do think it would be valuable to, and later, like I am hoping to work on this as a master's thesis at some point, to do a more objective and quantitative study on how people are sharing memes. Maybe that could be done where I give them a phone and somehow I'm able to collect or see how their memes are being shared.
Right.
But
Yeah.
again, like a definition would need to be more solidified to do that as well.
Sure.
I just really thank you so much for sharing this.
Of course.
I know that you said that you've presented this several times. Do you think that presenting it multiple times helps you solidify the idea of the project?
Oh, 100%. When I presented at the National Conference of Undergraduate Research and Source this spring, I had only completed one round of analysis, including quantitative analysis on my survey. And this presentation is so much more complete. I was able to do a lot more qualitative analysis and really understand my subject better. And I think having that feedback from presenters and from judges especially was really valuable in how I was observing my research and analyzing it, and how best to present it, which is half the battle with research.
That is why I love poster sessions. So thank you so much for sharing, and thank you so much for talking with us today. I'm really glad you were able to join us, and I think especially having this sort of continued recording of your presentation really shows the growth. So thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and give everyone a minute. I know we were supposed to start again at 10:35, but why don't we give everyone a minute, and then our next presentation is me. And what we are going to talk about is how to get involved in student research, scholarship, and creative projects. And so if you are ready for that, let me know. Sky, I totally understand if you're like, I've already done that, I need to take off. But thank you so much for joining us this morning. And I'm going to find the right presentation because I have the wrong one open. New share. Perfect. Okay. Well, I just had to remember where I put the presentation. So let me go ahead and get started. Can everyone hear me? I always get worried with my headphones. Are we good? Okay. Cool. Thank you. So we are going to go ahead and check in today about how to find and start research as an undergraduate. I want to make sure that we are inclusive. This is going to be talking about research, scholarship, creative endeavors. There's a lot of different opportunities here on campus. And so that was why I wanted to check in. I know, Autumn, you're really interested in looking at your capstone project. Stephanie, if you wanted to share in the chat what you're interested in, I'll try to make sure that I address that as we talk through today's session. I'm going to talk about several different things. We're going to talk about just that initial question, is research for me? And from there, talk about how to get started, what workshops and courses happen on campus, other various research opportunities, and then talking about presenting, publishing, and we're going to end with some notes from our previous graduate assistant about what she wished she would have known about doing research. I want to note that we've put this presentation together with both myself and Erin, as well as our previous grad assistant. And I bring that up because my experience is in math and STEM, Erin's experience is in music. So we have a broad diversity in regards to our experience in creating these scholarship opportunities. And so hopefully we'll be able to address any questions you have here today. So that first question, I think, is always the hardest one. Is research for you? And I want to make it very clear that anyone can get involved in research. And hopefully what we're going to do today is address some of these other questions of how to actually get the process started. But every single idea that we have as humans came from someone, and then someone built upon it and built upon it and built upon it. And part of what we want to provide as your opportunity here at Central is first to give you the information about your field, but then give you opportunities to have your own individual thoughts, contributions, to make your own thoughts about how to take and move that field forward. We want you to have that initial experience beyond just, yep, that's what the knowledge that other people created is. And we want you to be able to take and think about what happens next. So as we're thinking about that, I think it's important for us to break down some of our conceptions about what it's like to do research and scholarship. This is a picture from my students 2 years ago. So that's why there's no masks. Let's be clear. 2 years ago in summer 2019. as they were getting ready to take and present their research. I had originally approached them with a very different idea, and they gave me a different idea. They really wanted to take and look at what we could understand mathematically about what was happening with the migrant camp situation and children in the migrant camps. And that was a topic that had first started to come up in that summer 2019. And so it's something that we ended up changing our research direction because this is something that they were interested in. We all had to learn about that topic together. And we ended up taking and we submitted an article based on the work that they did, really understanding how disease spreads within as the children were being kept in those migrant facilities. What I hope that you're also seeing here is that we got a lot of smiles and also just a messy room and just students working together. So research is not something that we expect you to take totally on yourself. It's something that we try to take and provide opportunities for you to work with mentors like myself or work with other students, other colleagues, so that it's something that it's really an endeavor that you take on together, so that you get to take and work together to create a better product. It was also something that you get a lot of internal jokes. Something that they started doing is they would randomly hide pictures of the rock in their various presentations as we were practicing together. And so it was always something to just make me laugh that I didn't know was coming. So, right, like it's just a chance for you to take and have an informal, fun opportunity to take and see what you can do with a topic. How does that sound? I can't see your faces, so I'm just gonna. Okay. So when I asked these students what it's actually like in regards to doing research and scholarship, we talk about the fact that you read, again, I'm in mathematics, so you read books, you read articles. From there, you try to summarize the books and articles that you've read, try to take and understand the knowledge that comes before you. For us, we actually then try to recreate the results. So just because somebody wrote a paper about it doesn't mean that I can just automatically make it happen again. But we do a lot of then trying to think about how we could think about this differently. And that is what you also heard from Sky's presentation earlier. She would take these definitions that other scholars had put out there, and then she'd think about, what does that mean for our central population? What does that mean for my generation of meme users? So she was thinking about taking her own interest, her own knowledge of these things. She went into the scholarly works to take and have references for that knowledge. And then she taught about like what she independently could add to that knowledge. So a lot of this is just working to try to think about changing it a little bit, working to think outside of the box. Then there's a lot of not having that work out, right? That first initial time, this is the first time we've done this fall event. And so we are worried, what if nobody came? And it's a smaller event, but people came. And I think that we're gonna get a lot out of it. Hopefully you're gonna get something out of this. And so after it doesn't work, we come together as a group. We talk about what did work and what we need to take and improve. And then we try it again. So when I've talked with people, to a lot of them, that's the biggest surprise, is sort of undergraduate research, undergraduate scholarship can initially be a lot of failure, but it's failure that you learn from, it's failure that you reflect from, and then turn around and try again. And that is why you need mentors. I think that's something that Central does really well. We have mentors that are going to support you so that you can keep up that morale and keep on improving upon this. Erin, I know that your experience doing scholarship and creative works here on campus is one different. Does this line up a little bit with what your experience was?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You try things over and over, especially in music. and or just in music, you can kind of see the reactions you get out of people based on what you work on, and that can be different based on age group or other demographics, stuff like that. So, and again, like our event, when people create these performances and stuff, it's getting people there. That's a huge part of it. And you don't know if you're going to draw a lot of people at first or not, but you still, whether you have a small or a big audience, typically you still get a decent amount out of it in the end. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so hopefully what we're conveying here together is that research can be a little bit scary at first, but we hope that that doesn't scare you away. And that really, one of the things that I hear from all of the faculty here at Central is that we want to support you through that process, and we want to make sure that you're successful in the end. And so work with us. So how do you actually find, oh, dope. We'll come back to that. So, so how do you actually find those faculty? How do you get started? So when we look at the field of mathematics, somebody wrote about how to successfully make sure undergraduates have good research experiences. And they said that a lot of this initial experience relies on faculty providing you good support. You got to find the right level of research problem. So something that I tried to do when I first came here, I was like, here's my dissertation. Let's see if we can do this a little bit more. Well, my dissertation took me 6 years to figure out. So we needed to try a different problem. That's why I started moving towards things that students were interested in, and then we learn about it together. So finding the right research problem is really important. Similarly, finding the right mentor to take and work with. You want somebody that's going to have similar expectations for you in regards to what you want to get out of this project, and is willing to take and meet with you regularly to move the research forward. They also, it's not just about that research, it's also about thinking about how you're going to present it and how you're going to take and use that for your future. And so I think this is something that our mentors here on campus do really well. The fact that you all came here today, I think that you both learned about this through accessibility studies. You have a mentor that's really invested in having you know about these types of opportunities and make the best use of it to support your own work. And so that's the sort of thing that we're looking for in finding you a mentor, finding you someone to support your work. I added this particular picture to this because this is a student I got to work with for 3 years. We worked originally on that model of an epidemic moving through the migrant camp. And then from there, we moved to something that she was more individually interested in, and that is understanding how mathematics can help us understand the female ovulation cycle. And so we were actually using math to create an equation related to the ovulation cycle so that we can also understand how polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is something that affects about 40% of the women in the United States, how that we can create a model about that. And so I bring that up as an example because it was something that she was individually interested in, but it was also something that when we sat down and looked at who has worked on this in the past, it's mainly been men. And so we really felt like we could add something to the knowledge of the topic and really be able to move it forward. And so we started working on that this summer. So when we also take and build upon this, so those are sort of our experience in the field of math. Brooke also gave us some suggestions. So this is Brooke Ryder. She was our grad assistant for 2 years in the Office of Undergraduate Research. Her background was in public health. And so what she sort of said to get started is first you're going to talk to people. So that means talk to faculty that you have an interesting class with, talk to other students that you have a good experience with. And from that, find people that are interested in working together. In regards to finding a mentor that really suits your interest, or even approaching this is one of the things that I thought we could sort of brainstorm together. So how do you actually start to talk to faculty about if they're interested in doing projects like this? You can put some stuff in the chat. You could say some stuff out loud. How do you start talking to faculty?
I think you either email them or you approach them during office hours. Sometimes email doesn't go answered, so you approach them in person.
I mean, professors don't respond to their emails. That's shocking.
I mean, it's not
Shocking,
just
I say.
professors, it's a lot of people with stuff.
It's true. So approaching them, that seems to be great. I would definitely say office hours is a great time because that's something that we've set aside to work with students, and we're always so excited when people come to visit us. Any other ideas? So some other things that might happen, at least in our department, we sometimes have talks that faculty give. So that faculty will take and talk about things that they're interested in. And so that's a good way to sort of follow up with the faculty member, be like, I really liked when you talked about this particular game. Is that something that you would like to take and explore with someone? Also sometimes going to our math club. So our discipline specific club, you can talk with other students and hear what research they've done. And from that you can take and also meet with them. So those are 2 ideas, 3 ideas. I don't know, there's some number of ideas. But also I want to point out that we have, oh goodness. There we go. There are several different organized structures here on campus to take and support your particular research experience. So all of these are listed, and I'm going to go ahead and just come out of this presentation so that we can look on the website. I'm also going to put the website in the chat. But all of these are opportunities that are listed in our undergraduate research. You share. In our undergraduate research website. So if we are under 4 students, research opportunities, this is going to outline the different opportunities, both on and off campus. So the Douglas Honors College is something that Sky talked about earlier. This is something that if you are a member of the Douglas Honors College for your Gen Eds, it's something that you could extend your work with them and do a upper division course sequence. They actually have a set of classes that walk you through how to get involved in research and get you started from there. The next sort of on-campus structured program is McNair Scholars Program. There is going to be requirements both in terms of your own personal and your parental support, guardian support income. So that can be hard for some students. But this is an opportunity if it's something that does line up with your own personal background. They provide mentorship experiences, quarterly classes, as well as funding to take and do summer work, and funding to send you to visit colleges, as well as funding to take and pay for your graduate school applications. And then right now there was a program called the STEP program. Currently that is not active, but it's something that could be looked at in the future. Those are the organized programs here on campus. We also have various sponsored opportunities. So we've talked about the grants that we have here once you've found a mentor. And also once you've found a mentor, there is something called high performance computing. You have access to that as a student, and that's something that we could talk to you, but I don't think that lines up with the projects either one of you are interested in. From there, I think there's 3 main opportunities I wanted to talk to you about. Or I guess 2. So research experiences for undergraduates. These are summer programs structured in such a way that, and now they run both virtually and in person, but you are able to take and see programs across the country in anything that the National Science Foundation funds, that you can go and do work in other parts of the country to take and do research. So this is something I had a chance to do as an undergraduate. I grew up in Idaho, and I was able to take and fly out to Pennsylvania to do a mathematical biology REU. And then I was also able to go to Bermuda to do a marine biology REU. They accepted me for that marine biology research experience because I had a biology background, but also with my mathematics, they were really interested in me supporting the other students there and them doing their own mathematical work. So I got to go spend 10 weeks in Bermuda. It was pretty awesome. I now run a mathematical REU here on campus, and we are currently the only formal REU here on campus, but there are other programs, as I said, across the state that you could possibly get involved in. Beyond the National Science Foundation, there's also opportunities through the Student Opportunity Center. This is something that Central is a member of, that we are able to nominate you for. So if this is something that you are interested in looking into, please let us know, and it's something that we can log you, enter your information, get you signed up. And this would give you opportunities to see different opportunities for professional development, research, and internship opportunities. Does that work? Pause. Okay, cool. So
I have a question real quick, actually.
please. Yay.
So I guess I'm confusing, or I'm not familiar with the kind of research that's not like quantitative, like, you know, adding numbers and mathematics and equations and things. How would research be applied to, like, I guess more like commentaries and social things and I guess working with people and qualitative kind of things?
Perfect question. So I think that this is a great opportunity. One of the advantages of last year's source event being virtual is that we actually were able to take and keep all of the presentations for last year's event still available to all of you right now. And so you can see the different presentations that were done. And so we can, I was trying to think of one I can just, so this is about the Syrian refugee crisis. And it's going to be analysis comparing the Syrian refugee crisis and Black Lives Matter movement. So this is not, again, going to be numbers, but some much more of sort of a literature review and analysis of things that are going on. I'm gonna, since both of you are interested, let me make sure that I spell it right. Let me just pull up, these are presentations related to accessibility studies. So this is a student that I worked with. I run an outreach program in mathematics. And so Sam put together a presentation and study of the accessibility of our lesson plans, our video lesson plans. And so it was a capstone presentation looking at like with a set of guidelines around accessibility and comparing it in regards to the expectations for that. Somebody else did a study on deafness mentioned in elementary education courses. Yesterday, we had a presentation from a student that was looking at how to take and make music education in K-12 classrooms more accessible. her main sort of thesis is the fact that we have defined needs for specific students in regards to accessibility. But if we build in more accessibility within music classrooms, then that ensures that all students have that same accessibility, and everyone's going to take and have a better music classroom experience. Does this give you some more ideas? I may be doing this well. Erin, is there any, I know that you have more that you could add, because
No, I think that was fine, Brandy. A lot of like I know that sociology does a lot of like interviewing in their research projects. So that's all not just like putting numbers into, it's finding common ground between a lot of different people, stuff like that. So it's research that I think has a really broad spectrum. But it can be seen as this like all science, all numbers kind of thing. So we're trying in our office to expand that idea and show that, we're not just giving all our money to the science building or something like that. So we work, and especially, and then all the grants we do and help with research leads to our symposium, which in the spring, which celebrates all different types of research / creative projects, in the arts or in stuff like that. So, my coffee's still kicking in, so I'm trying to find the right words, but but yeah, so we really do try to serve all of campus. So we'll always try to keep improving that research experience for everybody as well.
And that I was trying to see if anything from the safety program had presentations, but it doesn't look like we had any for this last year. So I know that they do have a capstone with that, but I think that they might do within presentations within their own group. Yeah. So Autumn, did that address questions around that? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. It sounds like it's a lot of analysis and assessment and interviewing and just kind of creating a comment thesis.
Yeah.
And just as a side note, when those types of projects, when there is interviewing or people involved, technically they're considered human subjects, and then that requires another step of approval from our Human Subjects Council. So they make sure that you're kind of doing everything according to code and stuff like that. So and like with incentives, like sometimes people can give incentives to their human subjects. So like, I think like a $20 gift card to Starbucks or something like that for completing the interview or answering their questions. And so if you go into that type of research, just make sure you like look at all the different protocols and stuff like that. But they're just down the hall from us, and we work with them all the time. So it's not a hard process, and they want to approve projects. They're not looking to shut anything down. They're just making sure that accreditation stays intact and everything like that.
And that makes me think of the research done by a previous AUR director. That director does a lot of work looking at, I was trying to think of the project that he was doing with sort of students, young men in Yakima. I was trying to think of his students project. All the words just left my head. Let's look really quick. Wait, I know his name, and then I can find the presentation. There we go. So originally, Gerald was hoping to take and do a project where he was going to get to interview a lot of students, a lot of young men in Yakima broader community in regards to their experience as a queer man in the Yakima County, but ended up, because of COVID, not able to take and meet with students, meet with other people. So he ended up taking and turning it into sort of more of a literature review and summary project. So it went from something that, as Erin said, involved tons of human subjects, and trying to take and make sure that those people felt safe as they were being interviewed, and then ended up, because of COVID and a different type of safety that we were concerned about, ended up turning it into something that more summarized the current literature of the work. And that's still adding to our knowledge of the field. To take and do a summary of what other people have been doing still sort of brings those different theses together to create new thoughts. So, but I will make sure in the future, as we keep looking at this presentation, that we add to it, because I think that adding sort of those, so that it's not just my experience, is something I will do in the future. So thank you. So once you have gotten through, you've spent, we heard from Sky earlier, we spent a year doing this work. I do want to briefly touch on like where you take it next, and that is going to be publishing or presenting the work. And so again, I'm just going to use my own examples. These are two of my students. On the left is when my student Ariel was presenting her work from our 2019 summer work. She got to go to Hawaii and present it at a conference called SACNAS. And so she had a chance to both present her work and then meet a lot of other role models and talk to people about the work that she'd done. And then on the right, you see Vanessa Montano's initial presentation, also at SACNAS, but it became virtual the next year, about the work that we've done on polycystic ovarian syndrome. So the reality of today is that presentations can take a lot of different forms. Before it was sort of doing a presentation in person, preparing 15 minutes. We saw that with Sky this morning. Now there might be a video component and then sort of a chance to check in with a judge or have a panel and just have a chance to take and talk about it. I know for some students, when you first hear this idea that not only am I going to have to do research, but now I'm going to have to talk about it, it sounds just exhausting. I know that I find presenting in front of other people just terrifying. But what I have learned over the years is through this practice, through this supportive environment, how to kind of put my conference hat on, how to put that personality on, and take the moment and be able to present and get myself out there. And then I go home and crash for the rest of the day, right? So we're trying to give you these safe, smaller opportunities to take and practice that. Because no matter what job I've done since I graduated, presenting and talking about the work that I do is constantly a part of it. So I think it's important to give you those real life experiences as part of your experience here at Central. I want to remind you that we do have funds available to take and support you going to a conference. Vanessa actually got a grant to go to Nebraska to take and present her work again before COVID. But if you aren't interested in taking and traveling, please remember that you can always take and present at our on-campus event. So our on-campus event is really trying to be inclusive of the various types of research and scholarship that's done here on campus. It's called the Symposium of University Research and Creative Expression, or SOURCE. And that's because really we see all sorts of different presentations. So there are poster presentations, which is what you saw in this slide, maybe. So there are poster presentations, and there are oral presentations, which are sort of a set of slides like I'm doing right now. We've actually even had creative expression performances. Some people bring in constructed projects. It's always really fun sort of engineering things, sending stuff across the room, stuff like that. If this is something that you're interested in, the event itself will be in May, but you will need to take and submit your presentation sometime between March and the very first week of April. So you tell us that you want to do the presentation back in March, and then you would actually present that presentation in May. We do want to make that opportunity as inclusive as possible. So right now we have plans to both have the event in Ellensburg as well as on the west side, since we have different students at different locations. And this year, depending on how we are able to orchestrate that in-person thing, we might have a small, maybe virtual part, but we'll have to wait and see on that. I'm not going to promise yet. Okay. So that sort of walks you through at least what our thoughts in the past have been about what you might want to know about what it's like to do this sort of scholarship work. What I wanted to end with is just this chance to hear from our previous student about what she wished. So she was a student here at Central, similar to Erin. She stayed to get her master's. And so while she was working on her master's, she really thought about what she wished she would have known about undergraduate research. And so she shared these ideas. First of all, she said, figure out your research interests early on. So just start thinking about this early. You attending this workshop this weekend is a great way to take and start it. And this is exactly why we created the fall event. She also reminded us that when researching, always use validated and reliable sources. And so this is why we've added today the information about how to use the library, because they do great trainings on how to take and find validated and reliable sources. I would actually say one of the funniest days I've ever had in research is when my student couldn't find any information, and we went to the library and they found it in about 15 minutes, and the student was just blown away. They said they were so fast at that, and that's literally what they're trained for. Librarians are so great at finding information and helping you find good information. And so please remember that they're there. Brooke wanted to remind us about, as you're checking where you're getting your information, make sure you're using like a .gov or .edu or .org. So those are government or education or organizational nonprofit URLs. She also reminded us about the library. And then always adjust the filters when using sites such as the library, PubMed, or others. So what she gives us an example about is this is if you were looking here at Central, you can take and select that you want peer-reviewed journals and articles, and that's really going to narrow down all of your resources, but also it's going to make sure that it's validated. And she feels like she saved a lot of time by using that once the library reminded her about those resources. I don't know what 4 is. Oops. Here, never be afraid to reach out to faculty or staff in your department or other departments. We are always here to take and assist students and help in any way possible, and use them as guides and resources to help shape your research ideas. So I think one of the things, Brooke was always very happy to take and address questions that students had. And it's something that we're very happy to take and do as well. So please use us as a resource. And a reminder that there is many resources on campus to help you. So you coming today is a great start to that. And hopefully as we go forward, there is more resources that we'll be able to take and introduce you to. So that is about what I had. As I said, I'm happy to address any questions. I wanted to sort of end it here because I wanted to make sure we addressed your individual questions about this topic. Is there anything else we can sort of check in about? Gesundheit, my apologies.
Hi.
Hi.
One of the things that I have concerns about as far as a lot of these resources and options that are available. So I'm an online student. I'm nowhere near Ellensburg. So a lot of this seems like it's very campus specific. What kind of options do we have?
Great question. So we started off with the fact that faculty are always going to be sort of a great initial resource. And so faculty should still be available to you online. We've learned how to do all this stuff on Zoom. And I spent all the last 2 summers doing all of my research virtually. So faculty should still be able to take and support you in doing things even as online. But there's always going to be that moment of like, how do I meet them? And so one of the suggestions that we went back to at the very beginning was going to office hours or going to some of these social events, having an opportunity so that you're able to take and know if this is somebody that you can work with. So that would be at least the way to approach me, is if we were taking an online class together, trying to take and meet during office hours. So we could think about like, hey, you introduced this idea yesterday. I'd really like to explore that further with you. How would we do that? That's a way to start. The library also does a great job. Their librarians do run virtual office hours. And so that's something that I think that they've gotten better at during the pandemic. And so even they actually have a 24-hour help desk, so that even when there isn't people here on campus, other librarians across the country will actually take and address your questions, because again, librarians are better at searching information than we are. So that is something that they have available. The funds that we take and put together for the OUR, it is something that you need a faculty mentor to work with, but that would be accessible to anyone. You don't just need to be on campus. And as we said, now that we've had sort of a year of being virtual, I think we're working at trying to make more of these events, if not virtual, then definitely recorded, so that you would have access to that same information. Erin, can you think of other ways we've tried to take and adapt and think through some of these things?
I don't know if I have much to add, but I know that in my time here, we've definitely had online students apply for grants, and because they're certainly welcome, because we have students from the different centers on the west side, which sometimes that means they're online or they're in person on the west side. So we still accept those applications from online students, so you're not excluded in that way at all. But yeah, so we do try to keep things open as far as stuff being on campus versus online, which, like Brandy said, we've definitely learned more about and tried to implement more over the last 2 years since it's become a necessity. So
that said, Stephanie, I really want to hear and say that I would say most brick and mortar places aren't great about online, and I think now a lot more of us are aware of it, given that we've lived this last year. Is there specific things that you can think of that you want to think about more support for?
One of the things is just really being able to get to know the faculty in a department. Like I know a couple of the teachers that I've had, and that's kind of about it. Like, are they even having these social events online, and are they being advertised? Because I'm not seeing much of anything. And I do tend to watch my email for that stuff, and I'm just not seeing it happen. Is that something that's happening across the campus, or is it very department specific, and that's the culture of the department that they do or don't do that?
It's very department specific, and it's very much dependent on the department's culture. One of the best ways I can think of to sort of build on that is to figure out how your student group communicates. So my student group uses Facebook, not because any of them really love Facebook, but because it's easy so that everyone can post an announcement, versus like if we had a website, then you have to control who has that ability to take and post things. And so a lot of this information that you're talking about, or opportunities, social events, are posted through that Facebook group. Other campus groups might have like a Twitter feed or Instagram feed, or a campus or a website. So those are some of the ways that some people keep the announcements going. Because if I'm honest, faculty and students aren't great at looking at their emails. They just aren't. I have
So
students that have gone for 3 months without looking at their emails. So that's why we've stopped sort of emailing stuff out to students. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, it's okay. Wow, I can't imagine not looking at my email.
I mean,
Um,
yeah.
Where's my
I
job?
know, isn't it crazy?
I'm a little confused about, you keep talking about these campus groups. Who?
Okay. Okay.
I'm not aware. I'm really just being, away from campus so much. The only people I ever hear from are, oh, look at the transfer students.
Okay.
How are we finding these things?
Great
I just don't know. It's so different from when I went to school like 30 odd years ago, where you had to be on campus and you had to go look at the big bulletin board at the student union. And that was as far as you got.
Well, I'm going to be honest, like it seems like it's half and half of that. I would say that a lot of stuff just gets posted on the giant board at the student union. And I might ask Henry, because he's here and is our next speaker. And I'm like, but how do you find out about stuff, Henry?
Sorry, I had to dip for a second. What are we talking about?
How do you find out about student opportunities?
A lot of it is emails. One of the projects I'm working on right now was, the way we started was Snowden, Dr. Snowden just sent us an email. And we were just like, yeah, that sounds dope. Another big one is other students talking about it. SPS, the Society of Physics Students, that one is advertised through email, but as a physics major, a lot of people that I talk to are also in that club, and they say, hey, check this out, come join this. So at least as a student, a lot of it is word of mouth and email. I also work as an RA, and we always put up those like big posters in the residence halls. I know those are a big hit as well. With regards to just digitally though, I don't know very much because I spend so much time here on campus. I do know there's the website and all that stuff, but everything feels very physical to me, at least, or very in person.
Yeah, you mentioned talking to other students like several times. And I'm like, when do we talk to each other? We have the discussion boards we have to do for class, and that's it. It's not like we get together anywhere. It just doesn't happen very much with online unless you have a specific group project.
Something that my student last year started was sort of group chats for classes. So she did just sort of start a chat for everyone in that class. And that started a lot more of this informal discussion for everyone that was sort of online. I think it's worth telling the professor that you're doing that, because there are some professors that get worried that that will get used to cheat. But I mainly found that it got used to sort of say like, hey, does anybody understand this instruction that she gave us? And then somebody would finally get a hold of me and say like, nobody understands this. And then I could make it more clear. But unfortunately that does put the onus on you, and I don't love that. You can use those discussion boards. Some people have used those discussion boards to sort of start more informal discussions. And I did put in the chat the student club database. And I do know that there are some clubs that are still meeting virtually, and that would be a potential option.
With
I'm
regards
sorry.
of digital contact as well, the William Douglas Honors College has a Discord group. Discord is like a group messaging, like online, just strictly just messaging, video calling. It's like a fancier Zoom. It's like how I like to think about it. So Discord is a big one for the Honors College. No one else I know uses that. So I guess it's dependent on who your audience is and who you're trying to talk to.
I just want to chime in real quick and say, as an online student, I kind of have to just keep emailing people routinely so they get to know my name. And then also having just like your little profile picture congruent throughout you. It's almost like creating yourself as like a brand presence. Like this is you as a virtual entity. And so while you're not physically contacting or walking around the halls or going into office hours, they'll get to know you by your name and that consistent checking in. And almost like if you have, you know, in your own emails, you've got those same names that pop up that you're familiar with. You just become one of those familiar names.
And I do appreciate the idea of the consistency. That's been something that there was a moment where, I mean, we were all virtual last year. So I saw somebody that I met only virtually last year. And I had he kept talking to me like I knew him. I was just like, I don't know. And then all of a sudden I saw his profile pic and him at the same moment. I was like, oh, you. And so I do think that consistency and something that I really appreciate, Autumn, is that you can actually see you. So I have students that I appreciate like seeing their turtle. Their turtle's awesome, but it definitely doesn't get that idea of who this person is. I mean, the tortoise is adorable, but yeah.
Yeah, and in our office, we email so many people and we don't necessarily meet with them in person all the time. So even in my 4th year, I think we saw someone yesterday and I'm like, oh, I need to check who that is. It's, you know, they said their name and I was like, oh, we email like, you know, 10 times a year and we've never met. So that aspect still does exist on campus, especially with our office. So totally get that of like, I've never put a face, you know, to a certain person for so long. So it's just, we're just trying to find the gap, to fill the gap in that aspect.
Great,
It's
thanks.
very much like a out of sight, out of mind mentality. So as long as you're in sight, you know, they won't lose your mind, or they won't get you out of their mind as
Right.
easily.
Well, and I literally last year had a student that would schedule meetings with me every 2 weeks just to do that. He was like, I just was checking in, just wanted to see, trying to take and figure out what I'm going to do next. Do you mind giving me some feedback on this or that? And he just really wanted to make sure that as I was getting ready to write his letters of recommendation, that I was keeping in mind his like who he was. So, and I would say that that's also separate from research. In the end of this experience, everyone, whether you're online or on campus, you need 2 to 3 people that can tell what you've been doing for the last several years. And so having people that know you, that can take and envision who you are as someone calls them cold blank in the middle of the afternoon, can be really helpful, ensuring that you get your next job or your next opportunity. It's even better if you tell them that somebody's going to call you. But if they don't, but if you don't tell them, could they just off the top of your head know 3 things about you? I think that that's really crucial as you're looking towards your long-term use of this particular degree. Unfortunately, that's me putting more pressure on you. So I'm going to say the best way that I know, and this is what the student did, is I'm his advisor, right? So we would just meet and have advising questions. And then from there, he'd say, oh, do you have another faculty member you would suggest I meet with to talk about this question? And so he used that opportunity to sort of have a really small meeting and check in, but then from that, get introductions to other faculty. That's what we should be doing as your advisors.
Thanks.
So I hope that's helpful. And please know if there's opportunities like this in the future that you're just like, I'm not quite sure how this converts to online. We're happy to brainstorm with you. Please feel free to reach out to our office and contact us, and we can think about it.
Great.
So that leads us to us getting ready for our next presentation. So Henry is going to take and be our next presenter in about 10 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and suggest we just take the break right now, and we'll come back in 10 minutes and start again. Thank you all for your participation. So welcome back. I am so glad that all of you have been able to take and join us for our fall source event. A reminder that we have a recorded session today with the goal of taking and being able to take and share the session with our YouTube channel. But our next speaker is going to be Henry Reinhardt, who is going to talk about a possible explanation for the sharp decrease of ions in Titan's ionosphere, atmospheric waves. And this is work that he did with faculty mentor, Dr. Darcy Snowden. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Henry. Henry, are you able to share your screen?
Let's see. Share this one. Cool. I think you guys can all see that, yeah?
Looks good. So whenever you're ready, and thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Hey, I'm Henry. I'm a physics major here at Central. In my senior year here, the research I did with Dr. Snowden was regarding Titan's ionosphere. So let's just hop right into it. So first off, a little bit of background. Titan is one of Saturn's moons. In this little infographic here from NASA, you can sort of see it's a bit bigger than our moon, but quite a bit smaller than Earth. But it is a very interesting moon because it's one of the only moons in our solar system that has a substantial atmosphere. It's actually somewhere like 4 times as dense as Earth's atmosphere. So it's got for a moon, it's got a really, really thick atmosphere. It also has this nice cold temperature of 94 degrees Kelvin and has a liquid methane cycle. Just like how on Earth we have this water cycle, Titan has a liquid methane cycle. So it rains methane there. It has lakes of methane, which I just think is super cool. But with regards to the project that I did specifically, we're working off of the Cassini-Huygens mission. This is a mission where they sent a probe through both Titan and Saturn, but again, we're just looking at Titan here, and recorded a whole bunch of data. Specifically, the one we care about here is the ion densities, which was recorded using this device. This is the ion and neutral mass spectrometer. I think that's the right acronym for it. But it went through, it slammed into a bunch of different particles in the atmosphere, collected all the data, sent it on home, and that's what we've been working on. All of these ions in Titan's ionosphere are coming from photoionization, which is what happens when ionizing radiation comes in, strikes the chemical, ionizes it, and causes all sorts of fun chemistry going on with it. But that's just a little bit of introduction onto what's going on here. So our objective, as I said, Cassini-Huygens flew through the atmosphere of Titan and collected a whole bunch of data. Here you can see, this is from one of the papers that I was working off of, Richards et al. But this was these shapes are the actual data that they collected, and they tried to create a fit as well. Theirs is in these solid lines. But you can see that there's this bite out of it. Normally with chemistry, we would expect a nice smooth curve of densities. Yeah, this is the ion density in the ionosphere. But all of these have, specifically some of these other ones here, we're looking specifically at CH5+, which is methanium, which isn't listed here. That's what we focused our chemistry on. Anyways, there's this bite out of each of these curves. And that makes us think there's something funky going on in Titan's ionosphere. We want to be able to describe that funkiness with this continuity equation. This is pretty much just a way of balancing the chemistry to say, hey, whatever we have produced is lost, or whatever is lost is balanced by the production. So this is what our goal is to create the photoionization that can describe the smooth curves and then impose a wave onto it. First off, let's talk about the photoionization. In Titan's ionosphere, there are a whole slew of chemicals up there. We, again, are focused specifically on CH5+ or methanium, which I have the chemical reactions listed by Vitton et al. Here. There are two parts to this. There are the production and the loss sides. Just to walk through it real quick. Anything where CH5 plus is on the left and the arrow goes to something else, that means we lose CH5 plus. Anything where CH5 plus would be on the right side and some other stuff combines to make it, that would be a production. So we have these production and loss equations that we can then balance with some sort of production rate or mixing rate, and then apply that. You see there's this whole bunch of Greek letters and scary symbols and all that fun stuff for the production and loss equations, but it's essentially just, we have some ions, we have some other ions, we mash them together, they do some chemistry, and we get those productions. We looked at a total of 16 different chemicals, 8 of which were ions with 19 reactions. The reason that we chose this number specifically, again, comes back to the fact that we were focused on CH5 plus methanium. Vitton et al. Had all sorts of, just a list. It was like 3 or 4 pages of chemical reactions for production and loss equations. To simplify this code and this project, we reduced it down to just 19 reactions. This does come into some error, and I'll talk about that later, but for the sake of this project, it was fine for us. Then we needed to impose a wave function on it. So this wave, we have real and imaginary parts, which you can see down here. This is our wave. We have this e to the I, which is just e to some imaginary number. We can rewrite that using Euler's formula to be sines and cosines, which we can then plot to give us both our real part of the wave, which is associated with the cosines, and the imaginary part of the wave, which is associated with the sine values. Using that, we can rewrite our chemistry, we can rewrite our wave, excuse me, and plot, if we wanted to, the real and imaginary parts. Again, we don't really care about the imaginary stuff. So we just wanted to look at the real stuff, but this is how we convert the math. We then take that wave and we impose it on the chemistry. What we were doing is we were running the photoionization code all the way through so that we reach some sort of starting values. We then take our wave code and we run it using those starting values from the photoionization code, so we have a reasonable starting block. If we were just to run it straight from the photoionization code and impose the wave in the same area, we would essentially just have some weird arbitrary values. I think we just set everything to 0 at the start. And that would give us something funky going on. But by running the photoionization first, we can then impose the wave over that and see how that changes it. The wave is also only being applied to the neutral chemicals in the background, but because it's applied to the neutral ones, those then carry it through the chemistry and bring it into, again, the one we care about, the ions and methanium. So let's take a look at some of the sweet graph I got. Everything was done in MATLAB. These were made in MATLAB. All the code was written in MATLAB. And one of the really interesting things about this is we do see a byte out. It works, which is so exciting. You can see this huge sort of just chunk down here. If we go back, the chunk up here is at about 1,200 kilometers. Down here, it's only around 900, which means there's some fine tuning that needs to be done with this yellow line being methanium here. But it means something is going right and something is going on. And here's some other wave parameters that I tried. One of the really defining things that we can see from this is the importance of the amplitude of the wave going through it. This one has a 100 centimeter per second wave propagating through Titan's ionosphere, and it looks nearly identical to the 50 centimeter per second because they have the same amplitude. We could reduce it even to a 25%, and no matter what the speed is, they look very, very similar, which suggests a lot about what is going on in Titan's ionosphere, which is exactly what we wanted. We're able to learn a little bit more from Titan's ionosphere this way. We do have this sort of a byte out here, but again, I'll talk about that soon. It's not exactly where we want it. And we do know a little bit more about Titan. By changing our wave parameters, we can sort of make leaps in judgment about what is going on Titan and through its atmosphere. There's some more work that still needs to be done, as I said. With the chemistry that I mentioned earlier, even though we only have so much code or so many reactions, we're able to still get a pretty solid model going on. But I'll go back here. Some of these little like spiky things and these sharp corners and some of the funkiness of it and inaccuracy could be described better with a higher level of chemistry, because some of the things that are being consumed in the methanium reactions, we don't have being produced because we haven't written in that chemistry. So you see they're just being lost, which works fine for the scope of this project. But if we wanted that higher accuracy, we would need to include more chemical reactions. Another thing that we wanted to look at was specializing the wave code. The wave parameters that we've chosen are kind of just arbitrary. I kind of just picked 100 centimeters per second, 100% amplitude. We can play with those. We can also play with the different wave parameters. We can play with the phase, we can play with the amplitude, we can play with the perturbation, and try to match it to this byte out that we have here and see how closely we can get it to that. However, that is a very, very, very time consuming process because of the volume of the code that we're working with here. The runs that I've presented here, these each took about an hour to run and get this graph from start to finish. So it is not by any means a fast code that I have going here. So if I were to find a way to optimize it and make it run faster, we would be able to test more wave parameters with a more reasonable amount of time. But again, the big takeaway is that we do have a byte out. We do have something going on in Titan's ionosphere. It's just, it needs some fine tuning. And if that is adding more chemistry, if that is changing the wave parameters, if that is speeding up the code so we feel okay about doing that sort of stuff, if it's getting a fancier computer that we can do that kind of stuff, those are future steps that we can take. And that is everything I have. These are the papers that I referenced. Thank you for your time.
Can we all react in some way for our speaker? Thank you so much, Henry. This was such a great presentation, and I can tell that you are really interested. How did you get involved in doing this research?
It started, one of the requirements to graduate is doing undergraduate research. So Dr. Darcy Snowden is a professor that I've worked with before just for fun. I've had a lot of classes with her, and I feel like we've done some outside projects. And I essentially just sent her an email and said, hey, here's a list of things I want to do. And she sent me back an email that said, those are cool ideas. I don't know how to do any of that. Here are the things I know how to do. And I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. Titan, I like that. Let's go with that. So it was kind of just bouncing back ideas and just finding one that stood out. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that.
That's great. Do you have plans? Are you going to go to graduate school? Are you having plans for how you're going to continue this?
Graduate school is definitely a plan. I don't plan to continue this specifically through graduate school. I would like to continue studying celestial bodies in graduate school. One of the things that really interests me is specifically computational physics, which this all was. It was done in MATLAB. It was all written code. I just really enjoy that side of physics. It's really fun to just sit down and type out some code and put on some music. So maybe not this project specifically, but projects similar would be really cool to continue.
Well, I thank you for your presentation. It was really great. I do have that part of me that wants to tell you that when my code was slow, it was a half a day. And then my advisor, of course, told me that she had punch cards, so I should stop complaining. So just, but
times have changed, huh?
Yeah. So any other comments or questions for our speaker? I know this wasn't everyone's topic, but I also know that I could just tell your enthusiasm and joy in doing this work. So thank you so much for sharing that. And that really came off just as you were talking about, like a funky graph. And that's such an engaging way to sort of talk and sort of start a conversation about what that actually means in your field. So
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate Henry getting to come and share. We were talking about the different ways people get involved in research. And so it sounds like just that conversation was so crucial.
Mhm.
And I can also just tell your interest in this. As you said, it may not continue into grad school, but it gave you an initial start to things. So
Yeah.
we
Hey,
are
just
going to,
send emails. It works. Yeah. And send more emails if it doesn't work.
yeah, and send more emails. That's
Yeah.
the key.
That's the trick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, with Henry's talk, we are going to go ahead and take a brunch break. Sure, let's go with that.
Lunch, brunch, whatever you want.
Whatever you want to do. I'm not going to judge what you choose to eat in the next half an hour, but I do encourage everyone to eat something, and then we'll come back and have a presentation from the library about how we can use their resources. So I look forward to seeing everyone back here at 12:30. And Henry, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, everybody.
First, thank you, Erin.
Sorry, I just want to sneak that in.
Yeah, our first set of presenters are from the library, and we really thank you. We know we're a smaller audience today, but as you said, that's going to let us have some conversations with one another. But also we're going to try to record this, as you just heard, so that we can share it on our YouTube channel as people are asking questions about how to get started. So thank you for being able to provide these resources today. And we have two presenters that are going to take and be joining us. I went the wrong direction on the slides. Now the slides are behind everyone. There we go. We have Professor Maura Valentino and Professor Wendy Spacek. And I'm sorry, I didn't get the accent in there, Wendy. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to the library as you take it away.
Thanks, Brandy. Thanks for having us here. I'm just going to share my PowerPoint. I want to do the presenting view. It's bad at figuring out how to get into the presenting slideshow. Play from start. There we go. Okay, so yes, we are here from the Central Washington University Libraries today, kind of talking to you about research support services that we have for your source projects. My name is Wendy Spacek. I am the Arts and Humanities Librarian at Brooks Library on campus here, and I'm joined by my colleague Maura Valentino, Scholarly Communications Librarian. So what we'll share with you today is an overview of the research support services that we have at Central Washington University Libraries. I'll tell you a little bit about our new Digital Humanities Lab, and then I'll pass it over to Maura, and she will talk about data management and ScholarWorks, our digital repository, and then we'll have some time for questions at the end, I believe. So just a little overview of the research support services that we have that you can use for your source projects. We've got subject guides that we have curated on our website. We also have one about citation management that can be really useful for big research projects. We also offer personalized research consultations with subject librarians. We also have a series of workshops called Research Smarts that have to do with kind of elevating your research, and I'll talk a little bit about more of that. And as I said, our new Digital Humanities Lab, which I'll get into more. I want to share my web browser with you now so that I can show you around on our website a bit. So this is our website homepage for Central Washington University Libraries. The web address is lib.cdwu.edu. And here I want to start by showing you our research guides. So it's very conveniently located under the quick links. So I'm just going to click on that. I want to kind of pretend that I'm doing some research and that I was looking for to do some research about the term tomboy and the instance of tomboy in the 20th century novel or something, right? So I'm going to the research guides. I know that I want to look at women, gender, and sexuality studies. So I'm going to hit by subject and just navigate down to the bottom. It's alphabetical. And click on Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies. That will take me to a list of resource guides that are underneath that subject area. And the one that I'm looking for is the is the homepage. So it's just the same name as the subject. So that's the research guide for that subject. I also can see who the subject expert is. In this case, it's me. And I can click on that and get contact information. But I'm going to click on Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies to get to the research guide. So the research guides are really useful. The ones for the arts and humanities subjects include a list of related guides, featured titles, a little bit of information about the subject area at Central, and then also some general research protocols and tips and tricks, and then also a list of curated resources. So that's what I'm going to click on, resources for women's gender and sexuality studies, because I'm looking for a primary source database, because I know that I want to find a document that includes a reference to a tomboy and use it in my research. So here you'll find this tabbed box that has different kinds of resources broken down by type. And since I'm looking for a primary resource, I'm going to go to primary sources. And there's a bunch, there's like so many great resources that we have at Central that are in the databases for different subjects, and we'll give you both primary and secondary sources. So I'm looking for something that might work for my search term. And I think I'm interested in this sex and sexuality database. So it says this collection explores changing attitudes toward human sexuality, gender identity, and sexual behaviors from the 19th to 21st centuries. So that feels like a possible option. So I'm going to click on that and it'll open up, and it should, if you're logged into your Central Washington account, it should go straight into the like paid content that we subscribe to, or you might be prompted to enter your Central Washington credentials, and then you'll move forward into this. So I'm just going to do a really simple search using this search bar. I could use an advanced search, but I'm just going to go really simple and just put in tomboy and hit enter. And then it will take me to my results page. And it looks like I've got 211 results for tomboy. So I want to kind of narrow that down. And to do so, I will use these limiters. I said it was the 21st century. So I'm going to look at, or the 20th century that I was interested in. So I'm going to look at 1900 to 2000. Oh, not 200, 2000. And I think also I'm really interested in correspondence. So I'm going to click on the document type correspondence. And I'll hit apply. 200 is a lot to look through, so I'm kind of looking to get this list to be a little bit smaller. I've got 67 results for tomboy. That's more manageable, something I can actually kind of read through and click through. One that catches my eye is this article of correspondence from the Harry Benjamin collection, which is part of the Kinsey Institute at Indiana University. And so I'm presented with a list of documents, which includes the one that I clicked on. I can also export a citation from this website for this collection by clicking on citation, copying that. But I want to click on the resource that I was interested in. So I'll click on that and I'll make it bigger. And so I can take a look at this. I can zoom in, I can download the image, I can return back to the collection and just sort of page through these different documents. And the one that it's pulling up is image 6, where it has this, this reference to tomboy. So I might want to check out that one, but I can browse through the whole collection, which is super nice. If I want to go back to my results list, I just hit this button right here. So this is a great place to gather some primary sources for your research and take advantage of all of the great resources that we have through the library. Okay, I want to go back to the home page. Go lib.cwu.edu and show you how to make a research consultation with a librarian. So right on the home page, there's this consultations page. You can click on that. And what it'll bring up is our appointment making system called LibCal. If you really want an appointment right away and you don't really care, what the subject area is, you can just kind of look for the first available by clicking no preference. If you know that you're looking for a librarian from a specific subject, like me, for example, then you can click on that person's name. And then you just click on the date that you want and the availability. If you don't see the availability that you need here, feel free to email the librarian. There's a lot of, flexibility with that. And we can also do research consultations over email, phone, Zoom, in person. So it doesn't have to necessarily fit into these guidelines. So if you can't find a time that works for you here with the librarian that you want, just reach out and ask. I'm going to navigate back to the homepage because I want to show you the list of subject librarians. So that's going to be under Get Support, Research Support, and then this quick link up here to subject librarians. And then you'll click on that, and it will give you a list of the subject librarians for Central. So you'll see your subject here, and then over to the right, that will be the subject librarian's name. You click on the name, and then you'll see our contact information and also that make an appointment button, and our phone numbers, email addresses, and make an appointment. So please feel free to make research consultations with us. It's kind of one of my favorite parts of my job is helping people with their research. So don't be shy. We also have peer research consultants who are graduate students who can help you with your research. So if you prefer that, that they're also available for consultations as well. Okay, I'm just stop sharing my screen. And the last thing that I want to share with you is about the Digital Humanities Lab. So I gotta get my PowerPoint back up. There it is. Okay, oh no, upcoming workshops. Yes, so we have these Research Smart workshops coming up. We have quite a few. Can you see my PowerPoint? Sometimes I'm not sure.
Yes.
Okay, great. Like I have two monitors, so sometimes I get a little bit like, can I see it? Yeah, so on October 20th, we have Google and Google Scholar tips, tricks, and tools. October 28th from 4 to 5 p.m., Mendeley, Zotero, and other citation magic. I highly recommend using a citation management software if you're not already for your research. It's something that can really streamline your research process and help you keep really good track of your the articles and the resources that you're using for your research. And these are all free open source softwares that you can access, and they just make doing research at a high level extremely easy. So if you're thinking about doing, if you're doing a capstone, if you're doing source, if you're doing a big research project, I really recommend you go to that October 28th workshop. We also have a Hidden Gems of Primary Sources coming up November 3rd, and then November 16th, I'll be giving a Digital Humanities 101 presentation as well. I forgot I did want to show you where to see this on our library website. So let me go back to the library website. And so for figuring out how to register for events, you go back to the homepage and then events calendar. And then you'll see these come up, these Research Smart workshops. So if you just click on that, there's a little button to register. Looks like there's 14 seats left. And this one is in person, but we do have some that are on Zoom as well. I think this one is on Zoom. Yeah. So you'll just begin registration and get signed up and attend these great free workshops. So that's how you use that. And then back to my PowerPoint. Okay. And then lastly, I just want to mention the Digital Humanities Lab. So this is something new that we have just started doing at the library, which includes 2 advanced computers on the 3rd floor near the microfilms and government publications. We offer programs that can help you with your digital research projects, data visualization, text analysis, and text encoding. So we've got some different softwares on there like Tableau, Statista, Constellate.org, which includes Jupyter Notebooks, Orange Data Mining, and Notepad++. So we encourage you to incorporate, using some of those softwares and resources into your source project if it feels appropriate. Any questions for me about this half before I send it over to Maura?
I think this was a really great summary. Thank you so much, Wendy. We did have a question, something that came up since both of our participants right now are online. I talked about how there's like a 24/7 librarian always on service. Could you show that resource?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so we have 24/7 reference support over our website through chat. So I'll go back to the library website, click home. And then that's right at the top here. It's the first thing, 24/7 chat. So you'll click on that and it'll open up this little button. You can put your name in, your email, which I highly recommend doing in case this is like a longer question that needs follow-up. And then you'll type your question and a librarian from our consortium will get back to you. So if it's like 3 a.m., there'll be some librarian in the consortium.
Wendy, we're not seeing that window.
Oh, sorry. It's
That's
because
okay.
it's a pop-up. Let's see. I gotta share my desktop. Okay. Now do you see it?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, so you'll start your chat here and then the librarian can get back to you. If it's between the hours of 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, there's also a librarian on call, like a subject librarian on call. So if whoever is on the desk at the moment can't answer that question, there's also a librarian on call. So and that it might be something where the librarian's like, can we move this over to an email? Could we schedule a research consultation? Could we meet on Zoom? So even if you can't be here in person, there's many ways to access these services. And like I said, if you need help right away, there's someone there 24/7 for you. Any other questions?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, so I'll pass it over to Maura to talk about data management and ScholarWorks. Maura, did you want me to run your slides?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I'm trying to click on it over here.
I know, sorry.
Just terribly effective.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. So I'm going to give you folks a quick overview of data management, because if you're going to do research, it's very easy for your data to get out of control very fast. And if you try and think about it from the very beginning, it just makes life much easier. And then I'm going to give you a quick overview of ScholarWorks. Next slide. Why manage your data? A lot of times now it's required. The NSF, the humanities agencies, Bill Gates Foundation, all of them at this point, they pretty much require a data management plan. And they're all a little different, which makes it very fun, but they all really want the same information. How did you get your data? How are you organizing it? How are you preserving it, which is the important part, so that other researchers could use it. It also helps if you're organized, if you're going to work with other researchers. I'm actually pretty organized with my own data, and I was asked for something recently that was like 3 years old. It took me like 2 seconds to find, because I organized my files and my folders. I know where stuff is. And that brings me to the third point. You avoid digital archaeology. And we've all done this, even with small things, right? Where is that, resume that I just created 2 weeks ago? Where did I put that? And, the more time you spend on that, right, the less time you're spending on your research or relaxing. It saves times and resources to manage your data. And if you publish your data, it does enhance your reputation, and it also moves science forward. My favorite example of this is actual physical data. But I used to work at Oregon State, and they have a very large insect collection. And at some point, a guy who was studying flora used that insect collection because the bees had captured pollen on their furry parts, and the preserved bees, he could look at through the years and see what was happening with the flora. So I'm sure whoever preserved those bees was not remotely thinking in the least that, research on flora would be done using their information, but that's pretty cool. Okay, you can move it, please. And then, this is the kind of things that you're trying to avoid. Why can't I open this WordPerfect document? Well, WordPerfect hasn't been around for a long time. I was a big user of zip disk because I used to travel all the time and I had to bring a whole bunch of programs with me. But I mean, that was technology that was around for like 2 seconds. So you know what I mean? If you'd had important data stored on that, you'd better get it, onto something else. Oh, the data, set is on the group server somewhere, but we don't really know. I actually wrote a paper on the 4th item that a lot of data walks out with graduate students. They don't realize who owns it. They think they own it, or they're just careless. So it's a big problem. I also have a really bad example of this one. A guy got his laptop stolen right after he came off a research cruise, and he hadn't backed up the data. So I mean, that research cruise costs like $20,000 a day. So I mean, there's $140,000 down the drain, but plus that actual data, right, in that time, and what I'm saying, that's not reproducible. That only happens once in that time period. So I mean, you gotta, if it's important data like that, you know what I mean, that's just absolutely not reproducible, you better back it up instantly. And then, it was so long ago, I can't remember. I mean, again, that can happen in 2 minutes. That you put something somewhere and, you come back from lunch and you're like, where did I put that? Don't rely on your memory. Okay, next slide. So you want to think about how much data you have. Some people, it's really very little data. I worked with a woman who was taking, samples from trees, and she had like 6 samples. So, I mean, you can be a little messier with that. Other people, and we have, I don't want to say, we have an example in our library where I have thousands of photos that are someone's data, but there's absolutely no description of the photos. So, I mean, I really can't do anything to help them with that. So you want to think about what kind of, volume of data you have, what kind of file types you have. Is that something that's going to go away, or is it, something like PDF that's going to be around? And I have another whole slide on file naming conventions. You really want to think about that. We have a shared drive in the library that is just impossible to work with because people have used multiple naming conventions, and even more than one is no good. You need one. You need to have a description about your data, and I'll talk about metadata. And you guys are talking about accessibility. I don't foresee privacy concerns with that, but there might be something I'm not seeing. But if you were a psychiatrist or something, and you have interviews as your data, right? You got to make sure that you're keeping that safe. Storage practices, storage is getting so cheap, but it's not free. So, I mean, you want to think about that, and you want to think about how you're backing things up, but that's not all data management is. But data that is unbacked up is no good. And it's got to be it's got to be in 2 different formats and in 2 different locations. So if I have my hard drive, right, sitting on my desk, and on top of that, I have my portable hard drive, that's my backup. Well, what if it rains or something, a leak comes through the ceiling right on top of those 2 things? Well, they're both gone, right? That's kind of silly. Big universities like CWU, they have storage, somewhere else. I can guarantee you, we have storage in Seattle or in Spokane or somewhere, maybe in Utah, they do a lot of storage. Because you need it in a different place in case it's like a weather thing or, something like that. And then you also need to decide who has what role. You guys probably aren't at this point, but a lot of research projects are more than one person. So, you know what I mean? If I think you're keeping the data and you think I'm keeping the data, that's not a good situation. So, some departments are great at data management. Everybody's required to fill out a form, and you have to, do it this way and put it here and copy it here. But other departments literally don't do anything. So, you want to be aware. Okay, next slide, please. Be very consistent with your file names, have one scheme. If you change schemes for some reason, because it's not making sense, change the old file names. There's software packages that are free that let you do that in like 2 seconds. Folder names too, so you can be organized. Are you going to have, one main folder and lots of folders underneath on one level? Or are you going to, go down maybe 2 levels first and then start dividing out? And you got to think about that. And if you have dates in your name, you have to do year first, month second, then day. right? Or it's going to sort by days of the month, and you're going to have everything that was created on the first of each month together and everything that was created on the second of each month together. Or if you're just doing months and years, again, you don't want everything that was done in June of multiple years together. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, what is metadata? The sort of general definition of metadata, right? That's what the word meta means. It's data about data. But that doesn't really tell you much, right? But what you want to know about your data is who created it, when it was created, where it was created, and how it was created. The ultimate goal is that someone could look at your data and reproduce it. Okay, next slide. So if this was my groundbreaking data, this is data is going to save lives here. Is this useful to anybody? Okay, no, because there's no description. How could you possibly know what those numbers mean? Next slide. But if you put metadata around it, okay, then you perfectly well know what that means. Okay, that's a temperature, and you know where it was the temperature and when it was the temperature. Now, the things going along the top, state, city, location, date, time, temperature, those are the pieces of information that I have. That's my metadata scheme. The actual metadata is Alaska and Florida and New York and Anchorage and Miami and New York and so forth. And then the data is the minus 23, 87, and 48. So we're taking, these particular states, this particular time, and we're taking the temperature there. So the temperature is the data we're taking. The other information is what describes it. It's the metadata. And what pieces of information you save is the metadata scheme. Okay, next slide. Okay, we use metadata all the time in life. Okay, here's a nutrition label. We all look at these all the time, right? We're looking at our cholesterol, or we're looking at our carbs, or whatever we're looking at. This is metadata, right, about the food that's in this package, which I don't even know what it is. Whatever it is, it's got a lot of carbs and sugar. But anyway, we use metadata all the time. Here's a metadata of like an instrument, that was used in some sort of experiment. That is more research metadata. Another form of metadata you're very used to, right, is when you take a photo on your phone. Captures where you are, captures what time it is, captures, what kind of, resolution you have, and so forth and so on. And if you're taking any kind of data with instruments, it is so much better if you transfer the metadata electronically somehow into your spreadsheet rather than trying to do it by hand. Okay, why? It saves time, but that's not really why. What does it really save? It saves errors, right? Because once you introduce an error into the raw data, you're in big trouble. It might multiply and grow exponentially, depending on what the error is. It also might be no problem, right? Obviously. So it kind of depends. But anything that you can do automatically or electronically is much, much better than typing in by hand. Okay, next slide. Okay, metadata used to look like this, right? Because we didn't have computers. So this is basically a card that's typed up about a book. And this is what we used to deal with in libraries. They're called MARC records because they are machine readable. And I used to be a programmer. So when I read about MARC records, I thought they were really actually quite brilliant for their time. But, now that just seems very unreadable. So, you want to make your data readable, but metadata has been around for a long time is the other point of this. Okay, next slide. Okay, so again, I'm kind of keep repeating the same things. Before you start, you want to think about all these things. What types of data need to be described? What are the relationships between and among them? What descriptive metadata can you find or do you need? And so forth and so on. The bottom ones are about preservation. Some fields have portals where you put your data, and in that particular field, if you want your data seen, that's where it needs to be because that's where people are looking for it. Like I know research on proteins is like that. Other fields, you know, they don't necessarily have a place like that. There are now what's called data journals, which rather than a journal full of articles, it's a journal full of data sets. And so that's a place to put your data that'll be preserved. And also we have our own institutional repository and we can put data there. The only thing is we can't handle super large data sets because we just don't have the capacity, but we can help you find where to put it. So as I said earlier, part of the requirements for granting agencies is that you preserve the data. So you need to put it in a data portal. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so Wendy showed you the research guides, and there are research guides on ScholarWorks, on open access, and on copyright. If you are using other people's data, you need to be aware of copyright. If you're going to take a chunk out of somebody else's writing and put it in yours, you know, you want to make sure you're not taking too big a piece. Obviously, a few sentences is always fine as long as you cite them. And then right within ScholarWorks, I have how to create an account in ScholarWorks and how to upload your scholarship to ScholarWorks. So I'm going to actually share my screen now. Yes. Okay. Here we go. All right. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, I see the thumbs up. Thanks. Okay. All right. So here's again our home page, and right here is ScholarWorks. And this is where source is. So if you'd like to upload your scholarship to source when you're done with it, you can. And if you have data to go along with it, we can work with that also. And I want to search in this repository. Okay. So it's just a little video. I think it's like 1.5 minutes or something because it's super easy. So to you young folks who are good at technology, I'm sure that won't be any problem at all, but you can always contact me if you need help. The other nice thing about our repository, okay, you can search in this repository. So I mean, if you were looking for your professor's work or you wanted to, you know, look at old pictures of the, you know, 1917 basketball team or whatever, you can search in this repository. Because we use a particular software, you can also search across all repositories. So, I mean, if for your project you wanted, you know, vintage pictures of, you know, West Virginia, our repository is probably not going to have that, but there's probably repositories in West Virginia that, you know, that might have that. So you can search across all repositories if you're looking for scholarship, and hopefully that it comes up. It's supposed to come up in the one search box, but library searches aren't perfect. We don't have the, you know, surprise, surprise, we don't have the programming money that like Google does. But anyway, and within our research guides, as I said, there's ones on ScholarWorks and open data, open access, open science frameworks. We have a lot of information on data management. Here it is, ScholarWorks at CWU. So this will tell you all about it. What does it contain? All about institutional repositories. So any information you need should be there. Okay, let me stop sharing myself. And Wendy, if you want to go back to the thing, that would be great. Okay. All right, next slide. showed you the the research guides on open data, open science framework, and more on the way. We just started our data management team, and we're hoping to hire an actual data management librarian. In the meantime, Ping is serving as our data management librarian. You can also ask your department liaison librarians, which is the subject librarian. Sorry for using two different terms there. You can also ask me. I have a lot of experience with data management, so I'm also happy to help. So next slide, please. Okay, that's it. So any questions on data management or ScholarWorks or anything else that came up?
When you say apply the scholarship through SourceWork, what does that entail? Does that mean you get like grant money, or does that mean it gets published through that? I guess I'm confused what it actually does.
When you publish something in ScholarWorks, that just means you upload your PDF and it makes it available basically to anyone in the world because it's all open access. And we put a Creative Commons license on it, so nobody can take your work and make money off it. But if somebody wanted to take your work and use it as part of a presentation, that they were doing, they could do that. They just have to cite you. Does that answer?
Okay, yeah, thank you.
And it does for faculty and students too. We actually have a collection of students at CWU who have actually done a lot of actual publishing, with peer-reviewed journals. I think there's like 45 in that collection. And publishing in ScholarWorks or an institutional repository, it does increases citation, it increases your reputation. It really does help. And thanks, Brandy, for putting all the library links in the chat.
Yeah, well, thank you for this presentation. I was especially, I love it when we have these sessions where I learn new things. And something that we were talking about this morning is that sometimes I can get so much in the math world, and you did a great job of sort of talking about different types of data other than just here's quantities in a spreadsheet. So thank you for that inclusive way of sort of discussing different things that we might want to keep organized. And thank you also. I love this whole idea of trying not to do file archaeology. What did you say? Digital archaeology for your own stuff and your own, yeah. So it's something that I try to build into my classes of just, if you just name everything, write up one, then eventually that's gonna be a problem. So
yeah. Yeah, I had a slide at one point on my data management stuff, but I was trying to make it shorter with file names, final, this is really the final, use this one. So.
Final, yeah. And some of them are getting better about that, just adding in version numbers or things like that. But the minute you name anything final, it's definitely gonna find a typo.
Yeah. Yep.
Things go. Well, is there any further questions from Autumn or Stephanie?
No, but thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
This was really,
on a Saturday.
this was a huge help. Thank you.
Good.
You're so welcome. Thank you. Glad to talk to you today.
Me too.
And I know it is a Saturday, but we specifically mentioned that if it wasn't this virtual sort of Saturday environment, probably a lot of people, that the group of us might not have been able to come. So thank you so much for joining us on a Saturday when we don't traditionally do stuff on Saturdays. So thank you.
No problem.
I hope you have a wonderful Saturday.
You too.
And we will share this back with you once we get it online. And thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, we should just
Break time? That's okay.
yeah. So let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break and we'll come back and we'll do our last presentation at 1:15. So we're getting ready for our last set of presentations. I do want to say that I've said several times that we will put stuff on the YouTube channel. There's a couple of different ways to find it, but I thought it was worth showing you this. If we go to source, that's the symposium that showcases things. That's where you had to visit today in order to take and pre-register. We have on that same page information about the 2020 program. And so if you click on the 2021 awards, here's where you can see sort of like what was the best topics for each college. And this might give you more ideas about what type of presentations, as we're talking about the different types of things that are research and creative endeavors. You can also visit the YouTube channel through that, and there'll be other links that we'll highlight. But we have video playlists of previous student presentations. So you can just go through and sort of see things, whether it's food insecurity, United Airline stock evaluation rate, like just a little bit of everything. These are the people that got the top awards last year. Those are the ones that we showcase on our website. Oftentimes the people that got awards were actually supported by us. So something that we also want to talk about is how to get more support for the work that you're doing. And so our last session here today is going to be done by our program coordinator, Erin Cone, who is going to talk about student funding and other for research and scholarship opportunities here on campus. So Erin, I'm going to have you take it away.
All right, thank you. I'm also just going to pull up a PowerPoint here and then probably jump onto our website just to show you a few things, much like our other presentations. I just want to give a big thank you to you guys, Stephanie and Autumn, for showing up today. We had a registration list of what we thought would be about 15 people here, and you guys actually showed up. So it's very, very appreciated. Let me just get my screen going. Can I really not? Can I not share my screen? Let's see. We can do that. Okay, well, now here's the technical difficulty part. Let's see. All right, Brandy, can I send you my presentation so you can run my slides?
Yep.
All right, I'll do that real quick. Oh, of course, the last thing of the day is the one thing that doesn't work. So just gonna send that over to you.
I'll just take a moment to appreciate.
Yep.
I actually have prisms in my office. I never get to see them
Right,
because
isn't
I'm
that
always
neat?
teaching right now. So.
All right. All right, well, yeah, Zoom wanted me to do system preferences and then they won't tell me what to do. So to make my screen work. So, all right. Oh, well. Sent you that in my email.
Cool.
I guess I should have checked that before the meeting this morning. Oh, well.
Yeah, it's just weird because you also had to re-download Zoom.
I had to
so
download
something-
Zoom. So yeah, I was away from this computer for a year because I worked from home. So I think some things just kind of slipped through. And you find out in the most opportune times. So I didn't put a subject in there, so I don't know.
Nope, I just got it. Just
Okay.
got it.
Our offices are next to each other, and so that's how long it took to go over.
I just can't get to the button. There we
Oh,
go.
that's all right. Okay, so thank you for waiting. I'm here to talk about funding opportunities. I've put our email, our main email that you can contact at any time, also our phone number, and then our website that Brandy just showed you. It basically, she does a great job of trying to put everything important kind of right up front. So that's a great resource for you. I'm sure we'll put that into the chat later today. So yeah, we can go forward. So the first type of grants that we have are presentation grants. These were formerly known as our travel grants, but we kind of modified them since a lot of events went virtual last year. And also with these grants, if if you want to travel to a conference, you also have to be presenting. You can't just be traveling just to see things, which is a lot of fun, but we fund the people that are presenting at these conferences. Individuals can apply for up to $300, and groups of 2 or more can apply for up to $600. The things you can include in your expenses are registration for the event, travel, like I said, so bus fare, flight ticket, I think even personal mileage if you drive yourself. You just have to keep track of it so you can actually be reimbursed for it. And I'm going to describe the grants and then I'll talk about the application process. So could you go to the next slide? Next type, we have our research and creative scholarship grants. So like the presentations we saw today, to do that research, you need funds, you need supplies, lab use, stuff like that. Creative activities. So like I'm from the arts department in music, like putting on a performance or doing recordings to use as promotional material for the music department has been done before, stuff like that. And then on the science side of things, just that's usually for like supplies and lab work, which the departments we kind of fund the departments to buy the supplies because the students can't purchase certain chemicals by themselves. And for these ones, individuals can apply for up to $750, and then groups can go up to $1,500. And this one this travel kind of sneaks into this one, and that's only if you're traveling to conduct the research. So it's not you're traveling to present what you found on the research, it's traveling to do the actual research. So, you know, driving over to Vantage or Menashash Ridge to collect samples or something like that. So like the mileage you would do to do that. And just to clarify, you can't do like copying of documents on campus, financial incentives. So like we were talking about those incentives for human subjects, that's the type of thing that our office doesn't fund, but can be funded from other areas on campus as well. And then also, if the research is part of it, it's just a class project or part of the coursework, we can't fund that because that's just already within the school. Next slide. And then we've added this one in the last couple of years, or we've still been working on it to improve it, experiential research and immersive studies in the arts grants. This is much more specific to our College of Arts and Humanities. So thank you for being here, even though this isn't necessarily your guys' subject. But I know that if people do sculpture and they send it to a place to be in an exhibit, that there's a fee to that, or just the shipping costs, stuff like that. Or if other students are going to a master class, or anything like that. That's so we're kind of trying to hone it in for the arts, just because before our grants used to be a little more directed towards the sciences. So as we've said many times, like we're just expanding our office to try and serve more of campus as much as we can. These have the same financial awards amounts. So individuals up to $750 and groups up to $1,500. And then kind of similar again, registration, conference fee. I mentioned the sculpture, but the museum and library archive admission costs. And then again, same with travel can kind of sneak in here. It just depends on how we categorize it. So this is like actually traveling to an event or to complete an activity or something like that. So next slide. And then, so who can apply? Students, all CWU students, both on Ellensburg campus, on the west side, online, all students can apply. For the presentation ones, the student must be the lead author and be the main presenter, like I mentioned before. So if you're in a group, just make sure that you are the main leader, or just that the main person who's presenting is applying. So that way it doesn't cause any problems when we're reviewing your grant application. And then the research and creative scholarship, that's any student. And with all of our grants, not just this one, we require that you have a central affiliated faculty or staff mentor. So it doesn't have to be just faculty mentor. We have had staff members be mentors as well, just depending on the areas of study and stuff like that. And again, that's, you don't have to meet with them in person. You can contact them online. And they also provide a letter of support for you in your grant application. And then for the experiential research and immersive studies in the arts, the student has to be vetted by a central faculty or staff mentor, or be the designated artist, so like the designated presenter. Basically, and this applies for the presentation one as well, if you have, it has to be through a vetting process if you're going to present or perform somewhere. If you're just paying and then if you just have to pay and they say, okay, you can go, like that's not much of a vetting process. So we look for people who are either nominated or selected by a conference to present, or people who apply and then they're selected from a group of applications to present or perform. All right, next slide. Okay, so all the grants I just talked about, the deadline is the first Wednesday of November, which is November 3rd. We do these grants again. I didn't put this on a slide, but we do these grants again in the winter. And the deadline for that cycle is February 2nd. And so we go, I mentioned our website, cwu.edu/undergrad research. This is like kind of the long way to do it. But if you, on our web, so I'll just say really quickly, on our website, right on the main screen, there's two boxes. And one has the provost grants, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And then the next box has these grants. And there's just a link that says apply here. And it takes you straight to the web form. But if you need to look at the materials that are required first, you go to our side menu and you click on OUR student grants. And there's a preparing your grant section. And that way you can read through all the materials that you need, just to make sure, because we do get applications that have some missing parts and we kind of go back and forth before our grants committee sees them. So just so we can not have that step, just make sure you look at all the things that are required. And then there's another thing on our menu that says submit an application, excuse me, and it takes you to our form again. So there's one really quick click, and then there's another one where if you kind of go through our menu and explore, you'll find all the things you need. And just please make sure your mentor is involved, because that's the point of a mentor, to not just kind of be this name that's on your paper. We want to make sure that you're interacting with your mentor and working together. And I think after this application or this presentation, we can just go to the website and quickly show that. Next slide, please. Or if you want to do it now, Brandy, I'm not sure. Okay.
Sorry, I was muted. Just give me a second.
Yep.
Website. So
You want to just go to home. So those two boxes down there, that's where it'll just take you to the form. Our internet is a little slow, but that's okay. Of course they will.
computer. Hello, computer.
There we go. So that takes you straight to the form, but as you can see on the side, it has all the menu pieces I talked about. And it has preparing your grant for each specific type of grant. So there are a few little small details that can be different for each one. And then that just, yeah, that about gives you a quick overview.
Okay, let me reshare the presentation, sorry.
All right. Can you go back? Oh, jumping around. Ah. What's happening?
I'm sitting there trying to tell you I'm trying and then nothing.
Oh,
is working.
I muted still. Okay. So the newer grants we just started these last year, are the faculty student provost research grants. And this is more partner between the faculty and student rather versus mentor and student. So the mentor kind of guides and helps the student along, but we want to make sure in these grants that the faculty member and the student are collaborating. And the proposals will demonstrate that there are gains for both the student and the faculty members, and that there's defined roles so that, again, it's not just this name that you have on your paper. It's both are working for the same goal. These grants are for $3,000. They are competitive. We are only able to fund 7 this year. And these grants can be used for a stipend for a student research assistant. That amount is up to the applicant, but just know that if the student is already an employee of Central, the stipend will be taxed. The withholding is about 29%, so it is a significant amount. And if they're not an employee, it won't be taxed, but these applications will be reviewed by a committee, and we'll make sure that the whole grant isn't just used for one big stipend. So just keep that in mind. Materials and supplies that you'll need, transportation for research, conference registration, organization memberships, publication fees, and other things. And yes, it is a lot of the same things our grants do, but this is coming from the provost budget. So they are able to include a few more things that we wouldn't be able to cover in our office. Next slide. So this deadline is coming up. We understand that this might not be an opportunity for you this year, and that's okay. The deadline is Wednesday, October 20th. And like we showed before, there's that first box that had this grant and had a link that said apply here. And that link takes you straight to the form, but on the form, there is a link right at top that takes you to a big information page about this grant and about everything you need for the application. And then this was before we had a web form embedded. So that second, bullet doesn't really apply here. Because now we actually have the form on our webpage. First, we just had a link. And then, so we'll be reviewing those in the weeks after October 20th, and those decisions will be made by November 20th. So right before winter break. All right, next slide. And then I'm just going to talk about a few other research opportunities that aren't directly, they're not under our office or anything like that, but we make sure we work with them just so we can tell students about the various opportunities, just in case one office can't fund something. And so we try to direct them to other places. There's the Douglas Honors College. They have a bunch of students on campus that it's part of their undergraduate degree, but they have an upper division scholarship experience. And this is another faculty mentor research experience. So similar to what we do, and it's a program. So it's a 17 credit program, 2 5-credit for courses and 7 thesis credits. And the DHC advisors are there to help you choose your track. So you're not just going in blind. You will talk with an advisor, and they'll figure out what the best course of action for you is. And I've put the website there to lead you to more information. We can add that to the chat. Randy, when you get the chance, next slide. And we have the McNair Scholars Program. They're specifically designed to guide first generation and underrepresented college students. It's a 2-year program, 9-week full-time. That includes a 9-week full-time, a 9-week full-time summer fellowship. And then it also gives guidance to how to write and present scholarly research, regional grad school visits, and then also with guidance on the application process, so the writing, stuff like that, and just other co-curricular and professional training that'll just kind of prepare you for outside of college. Also included the website there. Next slide, and that was it. So that's what I have. Sorry, all the technical difficulties and if there was any stumbling, but does anyone have any questions?
You
Yes,
covered
I have
it.
a question. Wait, someone else going to?
I think you're all right.
Okay, all right. First off, thank you. And second off, I guess as a senior, I feel like I've missed a couple of these opportunities, and trying to wrap my head around the processes is one thing, but then I guess I'm curious, or I just need more information on, I guess, the timeline of things. You're saying certain grants or opportunities are open till October or November 3rd, and then the source, you can enter it between April and May, or March and April. So I guess from here on out, what does it look like to get grants, get scholarships, and get published before graduation?
So so our fall grants are kind of the first thing. We didn't have this event fall source before, so in future years it'll be fall source and the application before it. And then our fall grants are always the deadline is the first Wednesday in November, and then those decisions are made before the quarter is over, so typically right after Thanksgiving. That's when students find out if they're funded or not. And then and if students are funded from our grants, they are required to present at source. I didn't mention that before in the presentation, so that's kind of how it's all connected for our office. So those fall grants happen, they conduct their projects, and then they might present their findings elsewhere also, but source is a requirement. And then for people who haven't started their work yet, or might have missed the fall deadline, they're always welcome to apply to our winter deadline, which is the first Wednesday in February, which this year is February 2nd. And then kind of similar, the decisions are made probably the beginning of March, so a little bit closer to, or a little bit more time before the quarter ends. And then, and they're also required to present at source. And so after those winter, after that winter grant deadline happens, we open up our submission web form for source for abstracts. And we open it so early, we don't get a lot until the end of that window. It's February 25th to April 8th. It's usually, we have such a big window, and we have it so early before the event because we typically have anywhere from 250 to 500 students apply. And this conference is not like our grants that we fund. It's not necessarily a super vetted program or anything like that. This is more of an at-home conference experience for all students to either get practice presenting or just experience what it's like. And clearly that's been different. The last 2 years we switched from in-person to virtual within 2 months of when the pandemic started. You know, that all started March 2020 and our event was in May. So we flipped really quickly and then had a virtual event last year. So we get those abstracts. So basically, unless there's glaring errors or we need to check in with human subjects or something like that, it is a almost 100% acceptance to our conference. Again, as long as each student has a faculty mentor and a well thought out application. And then source happens. 3 days. Again, we don't know how much it'll be in person and how much it'll be online. And then since it's so new, I didn't include it in my presentation. We'll also be having a summer grant. I know since you're a senior, that's probably something that you won't, unless you go into summer quarter, if that's on your track or anything like that, we will have money available to fund projects in the summer as well. And then Brandy puts on weekly research teas, which I assume will probably be Zoom sessions again, where people can meet and talk about their plans for grad school or just what they're working on at the time. And then also some professional development. So that's kind of what a year looks like for our office. And then we do have end of quarter poster sessions as well sprinkled in there. And that's where faculty can apply for their classes to have poster sessions. And so that's more in-class projects. So not grant funded, but they want to share their work. And we just do it in our building plus another building on campus, just so the foot traffic that goes through, that they can see what some of the classes have been working on. Does that help you a little bit?
Yes, thank you. It's
Okay.
nice to know there's more than one opportunity. I thought the window was going to shut off and then, okay.
Yeah,
so
no. We really, we try to keep things going all year. So yeah, and if you have any questions throughout that timeline, feel free to reach out to us.
Awesome, thank you.
Stephanie, did you have anything to say? I kind of noticed your microphone go, and I'm not sure.
Oh, no, I'm good.
Okay. All right, Brandy.
Well,
Did you
with
have
that,
anything to add?
I think the main thing was just thank you both. I just thank you for making this first event a success, and you really made a huge difference for us. And we are going to send out like a quick evaluation form, or we might just send you an email and ask if you have any feedback. Welcome to sort of just tell us like, hey, this is the most successful thing for me. I've already heard like the feedback in regards to trying to think about the multiple modalities that our students are experiencing, as well as trying to make sure we keep getting this information to people as early as possible. And that's something that we think now that we're back and having more events, I think it'll be something that it's easier for us to do. So thank you. I hope you have an awesome Saturday. And if there's anything that comes up, please let us know.
Great.
seem
Thank
okay,
you so
Erin?
much for doing this on a weekend. It's a huge help.
Oh, great.
Oh, good. Well, we're so glad you could be here. Thank you.
Right. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
You
Bye-bye.
too.